Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap BJJ Stars 15 with their 185-pound middleweight tournament. Also going to talk about the super fights. As always on the show this week, I am your host, Maine, with my co-host,
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We have, Miranda has notes as per usual. Don't have a ton of news. We'll get into news here in a second. I just wanted to start the show off with Miranda has great notes. The only note I added was BJJ Stars 15. It was lit.
Yes, it was.
It was honestly a good event. I had a good time watching it. I watched it after the fact. But before we get into the recap of that event,
I watched it during. And if somebody is listening that likes to do things for us, the fact that the American commentary
English,
the English commentary was actually like either early or late to things was really annoying.
That's why
it started off early. And so, it started off late. So something would happen and you see it and that's fine. But then towards the end, it started going early. So then I had to watch. It was like I didn't want to watch with sound, but then I liked the sound of the crowd. So then I went over to the Portuguese, and I have no idea what they're saying in Portuguese. So then that becomes a whole nother issue. And then it becomes like me like listening to this Portuguese, wondering what they're saying and not paying attention to the match. And welcome to the inside of my head.
We had the same experience, but you were texting the Grappling Rewind team chat during this about this, and I went, cool. When I watch this, I will just straight up watch the Portuguese commentary, and I did. And so I have I didn't hear any of the factoids that, again, a lot of times the English commentary will have, which I like. But I knew that it was also going to bother the absolute shit out of me to deal with the time sink. And so I'm just going to watch the Portuguese commentary. I will make my own commentary in my head, which I like to do most of the time.
I get it. Like,
anyway.
Especially when you don't have commentary that's physically present at the event, that timing is a
syncing
problem.
Audio and video it's not hard to do, but there's ways to do it, there's ways not to do it, and occasionally you get time sync delay issues. We have occasionally sync issues with this show, but we're two people that do a show.
But you're not watching us
in a paid service. Yeah. There's that. Let's move into.
I did like the Portuguese commercials.
They were kind of cool. Anderson Silva, he's a baller.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving into news this week.
All the way up.
There it is. Daddy Lovato wins.
You said it out loud.
Third place by the way, that's always what he is in our notes as.
Yes.
He gets third place at the Las Vegas.
Raphael Lovato Jr.
It's Raphael because he's.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Raphael.
Even though he's been Raphael in my head for the entirety of the time I've been training.
Yeah.
Third place at the senior division above 100 kilos, which is crazy because
of the Las Vegas Wrestling Open. So it was freestyle wrestling.
Yeah. I looked into this. I don't really understand wrestling, Miranda. Do you want to give me some information about this? It's crazy because Lovato is like...
I watched his matches.
Oh, you did?
Because I was curious how he actually beat people. Because, like, he doesn't come off to me, watching his jiu-jitsu, he doesn't come off as, like, a wrestler.
He can. We know he can wrestle.
We know he can do takedowns.
But it's just not like
But he doesn't come off as somebody who I would expect to...
do well in a freestyle, a straight up wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
He's a freak athlete.
Pretty sure it was freestyle because it was freestyle and Greco.
Yeah.
And Greco was completely different divisions. But it was a senior division, which is like anybody who's not in college.
Not an adult age guy.
Yeah. And he got third. He had like 6 matches. Mostly he just waited for people to shoot on him.
And then counter shoot.
And then he just countered. Like he would counter and he would like... throw them off of it or just like run behind people and shit like that. Like it was a lot of counter stuff. At least the later matches, the match he lost on, I'm trying to think exactly what happened on that match. It wasn't anything that you haven't, I don't know.
It wasn't anything you haven't seen, but it was also like, he's not a wrestler.
Yeah, it was, it wasn't, but he definitely moved different. He didn't do like the hand things that he does when he like I find when he does matches, like he does some interesting things with his hands. But I think it's sometimes he's trying to get people to react or like have a reaction maybe to certain movements. He wasn't doing that.
I suddenly want to go and watch this because now I knew that this was on a Flow or was it on YouTube?
It's on Flow. You have to go to Flow. Okay. You have to go to Flow Wrestling rather than Flow Grappling, which is I have both of them set so they all like intertwine. But Yeah, all the matches are there. You literally just type his name in, and they all like come up. And it's
I will need to go and watch some of those because I'm curious. I also love that Lovato's just got love for the game.
Yeah,
like just still in there doing. Lovato gave one of the best unretirement answers ever. Aside from the MMA stuff when he had to retire because of the brain stuff, he couldn't get sanctioned. All of that, like coming back into jiu-jitsu and then retiring from jiu-jitsu, and then basically being in Victor Hugo's camp and going. And all the other guys in like the Little Orange camp, like all those guys, and going, I'm training like I'm still competing for it. So if I'm gonna train this hard and put this much into the camps with these guys, I might as well just keep competing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's such a good answer because again, he knows how hard he trains, and he's like, if I'm gonna do it, I might as well just keep going. And I'm just like, that is such a good answer for like why, like you realize you're no longer in like the prime of your career, but also still willing to put the level of work that's like, hey, I might not still be there, but now I'm in like the post-Twilight part of my career. I still want to do it because I'm still down for the game. Yeah. And for him to jump into a wrestling tournament is just like, and do well is just
I
crazy to me.
I saw it after I saw some other thing. I saw some, normal, like, I want to say her name's Kennedy Blades. She's wrestling like an Olympian, and she did like a really cool suplex. She likes to like suplex bitches around the mats, which is awesome. So I saw that and I was like, okay, this is normal. And then I saw Lovato and I was like, Lovato got third? I need to go see what Lovato did. And it mostly counter wrestling and just solid like basics, like nothing super complicated, but at the same time doing enough and causing the action enough that he was getting points and he was outpoint fighting people.
Sweet. I gotta watch. I gotta watch this now because I didn't watch it. I didn't expect.
Yeah,
this.
you just
I didn't expect it to actually like cover.
You just
a little
literally,
bit, so awesome.
you just literally have to type in his name in Flow Wrestling as opposed to Flow Grappling. You could probably put it in Flow Grappling; it might still come up. But
sometimes they cross over, sometimes they don't.
Yeah,
it's sometimes hard to find.
Amanda Lev did it too.
Oh, there was
I think she lost. I think she lost first round.
Okay.
I'm trying to think who else. Like, there was a couple people that I saw because this is like a big one. Because I want to say if you're in the not senior division, but the other divisions, the winners of those divisions go
to Final X.
To Final X.
Yeah, I think that's this tournament.
I think that's how it all works.
I believe that is this tournament because we were talking about another.
Because Final X tickets are $50 a piece.
Really?
Yeah.
Where are they at?
Newark, New Jersey.
So, we could go.
Yeah, because I was debating going because that would be fun.
What date? What's the date?
It's June something. June 14th or something like that.
I might be a work trip, but
yeah. But Final X is fun.
Sweet.
It's a big one.
So that is anything else on wrestling?
No, that's all. That's it.
I've thoroughly exhausted my wrestling knowledge in this one conversation. So let's move on to something I actually do understand, which is BJJ Stars 15. This event took place. It was a gi and no gi event. The gi events, I think, are IBJJF scored.
I believe so.
The no gi events are ADCC scored. Again, full disclosure here. I watched this with no commentary. With Portuguese commentary, and I do not speak Portuguese, so functionally, for me, no commentary. It was vibes alone for the commentary, which I enjoyed, but I didn't want desync with the audio, and so I just watched it like that, kind of quietly. Let's move into this one. These are in reverse order. It's going to be real confusing. Let's go from the bottom to top.
Okay.
Very fun tournament overall. I go back and watch the whole event. It's not that long. If you can click through it through the interstitials like pretty quickly. This was a really fun event. I've talked about it before. I really like ADCC rules.
Yeah, but where was the drums and the fire?
It was a little less theatrics, but really, I don't watch my jiu-jitsu as much for the theatrics. I think,
but I like a little
as the
bit.
Rest of the team does.
I like a little bit.
Yeah,
of
there was
drums
like a dance. There was like a dance number in the middle of it.
Yeah, I need the dance number, or I need random rappers to come out.
Yeah,
when you walk in.
It was a little less theatrical, and I was a little disappointed. But overall, I thought the quality of the matches on this event is some of the best booking that they've had for BJJ Stars in a while. Like, the pacing was good.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed it. Also, thank God, guys, either Flow or BJJ Stars, the graphic with the names and the points was visible.
Yeah.
You could see it. It was the right size, so props to you guys for fixing that. We've been complaining about it for 14 events now. Really happy that it was good. I could watch it, and it was great.
I wish if somebody in Portuguese can tell me, they kept on showing an ad for BJJ Stars, and it looked like they when they do these events, they put everyone in like one big mansion that they all chill in before they come and do the tournament. If that was my correct assumption on the vibes of the language of the commercial, please tell me.
So they ran the same house that they used for the BJJ Stars reality show. I think, that they ran a couple of years ago.
Maybe that's what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I just assumed they put the people there because they were like, we don't know if you guys can figure out how to get around, so we're just going to stick you all in one place.
Again, I also watched the Portuguese commentary, so I didn't pick up what that was either. But it was a lot of fun. Go back and watch the whole event. First event, let's run through the GP first.
Okay.
Then move into the super fights. First round was Mica taking on John Blank Thor.
Yep. And he was a late replacement.
He replaced Almeida, correct? Or he replaced PJ Barch?
Almeida, I think.
So they match up, and I was really curious because Mica he is leg lockable. Not frequently, but that is, again, how he lost to ADCC to Cade. Like, he can be caught. Again, it's Cade. John Blank is bigger. John Blank is an 88er. Thor's 88 kilos last time he did ADCC. Mica is 77 kilos. He's cutting to make that, but, like, there is definitely a size difference here. Interestingly enough.
I think, isn't Thor being smaller lately?
Oh, he might.
Because he's been doing IBJJFs, right. But I don't know what weight he's been doing IBJJF at because he's been doing...
Yeah, he did a couple years ago. You're right. He did slim down a little bit. But I think in my head, watching this, John, I think is a little bigger still.
Yeah.
But Thor tends to play a really wide butterfly guard, like a seated, they're straight up what I call like a seated guard. A lot of guys, and it's really, I like watching Thor play because he plays a much different open guard than really what is currently in the meta in a very interesting way.
He plays almost like a... If you ever watch the instructional that Marcelo does for butterfly guard, he plays that,
like
which is
old school,
which is like an old school butterfly guard. Like really, like you almost have to teach yourself to keep your hands in front of your legs, which is a weird thing, because you're seated, but you almost lean forward so that your hands are almost where your feet kind of come out at, and it's different than.
A lot of guys will play shin to shin, essentially. Yeah. Like they play butterfly, and then they'll look for a shin to shin guard, and they'll combo that off into the butterfly guard. Thor plays this open, old school butterfly guard, and I think he's able to do it because A, he's good at it, and B, he has ridiculous grips.
Yeah.
Like he loves, and he's very good at a 2-on-1 drag.
Yeah.
And so what he'll do is you'll come in to address his guard, and Mica does it a bunch of times here to address his guard, and Thor goes hand. And grabs the same hand, and then Mica's stuck in this weird spot where if he pulls away, Thor gets to drag him. And so what Mica has to do is he goes from like kind of butt up in the air to a squat, and then he has to pull forward and try to pass off of Thor's counter grip. And it's a really interesting kind of interplay and counterplay in this longer range guard where at the lower levels you watch guys just get crushed by it because on the one hand, the guy in the bottom, if they don't know how to play it very well, gets immediately passed.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you have a guy like Thor, we've seen John Blank do it.
Yeah, but you also see later in this match, you see Mica figure out the timing of it.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
And he beats John's timing.
Yeah. If you're not really good like Mica, you end up playing into the guy's game, and they can just crush you through because you essentially you have to go and get committed on, then have to drag, and then have to time the counter on the drag to get through. And if you're not good enough to be able to time the 2-on-1 pull to basically counter, you're just in that guy's A game. Yeah. Thor's either underneath you, into your legs, and he is a very, very good leg locker, or he's like swept you and he's on top and he's moved. Like he puts you in the blender of that position where he starts to get you overcommitted, leaving your legs away because your head comes over top of the hips. He's underneath you, he's inverted, and then you're screwed. We watched him. That's, again, the entirety of Thor's career. This is sort of like very similar how we've watched him beat a lot of guys. It was very nice to see Mica like initially kind of go, okay, I see what game he's playing. I see how he's playing. I see what he's playing. And then be able to slowly figure out the range, figure out the timing, figure out where Thor was, and then eventually pass and sort of be able to combination pass off of it. To Thor's credit, though, man, he gets his guard back repeatedly. He sort of pushes the range out. Mica doesn't want to overcommit.
And he doesn't get any, like, with everybody else, he kind of starts jumping submissions on him. He can't really do that to John because he kind of, if he does that, he overcommits a limb.
Yeah.
And John grabs it.
And John's a really good submission guy, and John's willing. Like, he does a thing that I like a lot, where he is positionally sound enough to like be hard to deal with, but also really dangerous if you overcommit. And so a lot of guys just are unable to deal with that. And so it was cool to see Mica figure out the timing and then start to go, but still be required to play as diligent as he was through John's guard the entire time. Like, he could never get reckless with his pace, and it was just neat to see Mica Galvão kind of going, okay, I have to play it more like this. We saw a much more reserved Mica Galvão for pretty much the entirety of this tournament for all his matches. It was a neat
finals.
The majority of his matches. We have two matches here that are on the much slower end that I thought were kind of interesting to see, that he doesn't just have to beat you on a crazy pace, which is normally the matches we talk about for Mica. He can, like, we've seen him win these kind of matches before, but it's, again, nice to be reminded that the guy has some pretty phenomenal depth of talent, both in, like, the physical realm and also, like, you can play the tactics game and win a tactical match.
I also wonder why he only wore his black belt for John Blank.
I don't know.
When he went against everybody else, he no longer wore the belt.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't love the belt thing, but they do it, and
I mean, is it he'll grab the belt?
You can't grab it, so it's
but how do you not grab it? It's there.
It's you can't grab the clothes. It's clothing. Like, I don't know. He didn't wear it for any other ones.
I think you should give people the ability to grab it if you're stupid enough to wear it.
It's an argument.
I think it should be one of those things.
It's the pants rule.
You know,
for if you wear in no-gi matches, like if you wore a lot of. When Eddie Bravo used to do it, like, hey, man, you wear the pants, I can grab the pants. Like, okay, that's the rule.
Yeah, that was a good fight rule too. I think it still is. I'm not sure.
I think a lot of organizations you can't regardless now, but
good fight. Fight, you used to be able to use the pants if they wore them.
If you wore the pants, you can grab the pants. And like when both guys would play off that, it was always interesting.
But they were super religious, so you weren't allowed to just wear spats either. So they kind of forced you to wear the pants, and then they were like, but your pants can't be used against you, and you're like, fuck. Yeah.
So next match we had, honestly, this was super fun. Roberto Jimenez versus Isaac Michel. Super fun. It had a couple of very fun sequences, and I was really impressed with both of these guys in the wrestling and their scrambles in the wrestling.
Yeah.
Michel is, I think, quicker than I remember him.
Yeah.
Like, he's always been quick. He's always had these bursts, but, like, he had a consistent burst here versus Jimenez. And Jimenez is a guy that's very hard to, especially in tournaments like this, when Jimenez looks like this, feral Jimenez, when he looks like this, a lot of guys have a really hard time, like, getting him slowed down and being able to kind of put a lid on the energy that he wants to bring to a match. Michel was in there with Roberto, and it was really only two sequences.
Them fighting in the crowd I thought was hilarious.
So I got that text in our chat that was like, it's ADCC rules. They're fighting in the crowd. And I was like, I cannot wait to watch this when I get a chance.
And they had these big couches. They had like...
It reminded me of PGF.
Yeah.
Where they had like, there was like couches on the side, which I actually really like. I think it looks cool as shit.
I think if you have it, why not?
Because, again, it's not an elevated stage. It's a mat stage. Also, props to BJJ Stars, big enough stage.
Yeah.
Man, like, when they went off the mat, it was like, oh, it's crazy they're off the mat. Yeah. It wasn't, like, constant.
Roberto threw Isaac off the mat the one time.
He did a little bit. Isaac took a little bit of offense to it, and I was like, I kind of like that they're both fighting for it. Two sequences, I think, win Jimenez. I think it was going Jimenez's way. I think Isaac had better takedowns on the rewatch, actually. He had better takedown entries than Isaac. Than I had thought on the initial time I watched it. I was impressed with his ability to like get in on a leg and pick, and like he was.
Yeah, but I wonder if Roberto was allowing him to get on the leg.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell because Jimenez was like not super diligent with the sprawl. He really wanted. You could tell he wanted to counter, and he wanted to like standing counter a lot of what Isaac was doing.
I mean, he shot a bunch of times, but he couldn't really get. Normally, he can kind of shoot fast enough under you that you kind of go above him, and then he kind of come up on you. And every time he did that, Isaac just kind of sprawled into him, and he was kind of done. But
Isaac
then he
has a good
didn't do.
sprawl.
But then Isaac didn't really do anything with the sprawl. That was the part that I didn't really get.
That's what I was a little bit confused about, because Michelle seemed to have good timing for a lot of these, and I was like, okay, and we're gonna get into like a firefight, and then Michelle would be very diligent with the sprawl. He would get out, and then he wouldn't like reshoot, he wouldn't re-snap, he would just kind of go okay, and then reset. It looked like he seemed like to want an open space takedown into something. And again, we've seen him win trials with that kind of strategy.
Yeah.
Like he's done it. He's good enough to do it to a lot of guys, a lot of good guys. But he didn't have that like second level of follow up.
No.
And then later in the match, Jimenez counters and he gets that big 5-point throw.
Yeah.
Over, he gets a big suplex throw that he turns. He does the jumping turn like Yoel Romero did, like Randleman does. Not quite on the neck like in Fedor, but it was still a very good, like very high.
He also
altitude
jumps
throw.
the back the one time, or almost jumps.
Oh,
the back.
that sequence as well. Yeah.
He almost like gets a standing back take on Isaac.
Well, he gets points for that. That's how
No, he
Jimenez
doesn't.
takes the points.
There is no points. It's a decision.
I thought this one had points.
I don't think it has any points.
I think it did have points.
We're gonna figure.
We're gonna
it out.
real quick. I think he gets 3 points at the end.
I don't think it ever hits the actual scoreboard. That's the problem. Because the last sequence he ends on top, right? There's no points. No points ever actually.
Oh, he gets
hit the
Taz's
score.
back for 3 points.
Yeah,
that's okay.
He gets
I'm
Taz's back.
I'm mixing up.
But this one, like, there's no points, and like the very last sequence, I believe, is Roberto on top of Isaac.
That's like winning sequence essentially. Roberto going from the single leg, grabbing the pick single, and then basically shucking to the side in the back as Michelle comes up, and they're doing the big lift over, which I think Roberto was taking it. This last sequence puts, I think, a stamp on like, okay, Roberto has the best sequence here, that big throw almost to the back. If you're going to go in close margins, especially for ADCC rules, you have Jimenez doing the initiation for the sequence and almost getting something in the sequence late in the match.
You also have Jimenez doing quite a few shots, which I feel like a shot is a little bit more of a progression into a takedown than maybe just a hand fight to the side.
Yeah, it was close. I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I think it's very reasonable for Jimenez. Yeah, I think it's good to put him through with his performance, especially in the ADCC rule set. And it was fun. Anything else on it?
Nope.
Next one, we had Elijah Dorsey defeating Raphael Pagini via points in the last 2 seconds of the match. This was, again, I've talked about it before. Dorsey's game as a spectator frustrates me greatly. As an analyst is super interesting, and then as a practitioner is sort of puzzling. Because I'll go through why and all these. And we talked about this on the pre-show a bunch. Dorsey seemed like he could have passed Pagini at a couple of points in this match.
Yeah.
It looked like he could have done this earlier. He elects to do, and it reminds me of kind of his matches where,
and it might have been
versus Nicky Ryan.
And you can't really get point. The problem with ADCC is you're not going to get points until your second half of your match. So a lot of people do kind of wait until that second half to actually do anything. Yeah. And I think certain teams have been known
TLI and AOJ a lot of times will play it.
Points up later in a match when they know they can't be then reversed.
This is sort of what we talk about, right? Kind of what I complain about watching Jonta Alvaz's game in the same way, where it's like, you're so good, and he has these beautiful sequences in the first 2 minutes of a match, and then the last 45 seconds of a match or minute and a half of a match, where he just you can see how much better he is than the sequence the other guy's putting up on him.
I mean, maybe
but it's only in these little bursts.
Maybe it's like a gas thing, or they're afraid that they'll gas themselves out if they
But it seems like it's such a frequent thing with especially with Dorsey's game in TLI, that he has these big stretches of doing just enough to have enough activity to not being called for stalling. And he doesn't. We saw again. This reminds me of almost a mirror of his trials win.
But is it making someone work?
Yeah,
Is it just how you sometimes have to kind of let them simmer a little bit before
he's cooking the beans a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Like there is some of that. It's just puzzling because the sequence, the past amount that Dorsey hits in the dying seconds of this match.
Because I think if you think about people who do. So Mica Galval doesn't really count because like he does some crazy like standing jumping things.
Yeah.
And he gets most of the ones that he tries, right?
Or something going off.
He gets something going off.
Good responses.
But how many times have you seen somebody try something like that, miss it, and completely
get smashed
and the whole match
give
goes
the
to
match
hell?
away?
I mean, I've done it myself. I've tried to jump arm bars and then
you're like, I got this. I lost the entire match.
Yeah. Like so maybe it's just being patient and it's just being being tactical as opposed to being
exciting.
Yeah.
I can't fault him as a competitor. Like again, he plays within the rule set. He does very well within the rule set. Like he plays here, but it's this match and sort of this match in contrast to this match later with Mica and Roberto, the next match where he is doing just enough to like be winning the match and not getting penalized and like being even, and then has this burst and wins at the end, and you're like, okay, that is a really, really tight strategy to win by very small margins. It just seemed like if you would have done that earlier in the match, you could have like taken that victory. And it's for how good Dorsey is. It's always been very strange to me that he elects to play this style of game when he is seemingly very, very good.
Yeah.
And he could have probably dominated larger sections of this match than just taking this literally last second 3-0 points victory on an even match at the end. Like, it's frustrating as a viewer and puzzling sort of as a competitor to go like, I feel like you could just have won this a lot easier earlier and then been up the entirety of the match, and maybe the other guy gets more hard to deal with because it's even and the margins are thinner.
Well, maybe it's a confidence issue.
Yeah, I don't know.
With your competitor.
It's odd, and it was another kind of odd Dorsey match to watch.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Next match, let's talk about really tough stylistic matchups. Oliver Taza versus Jonathan Gracie. We'd watched this, actually, we rewatched this match on the pre-show. This is a classic Oliver Taza match with Jonathan Gracie.
I don't know if it's is it classic Oliver Taza? Because I feel like
we've
seen
actually
a lot more. Now we've seen him do a lot more reverse guard in this. Is it reverse guard?
It's
called?
It's not donkey guard.
It's reverse guard.
Reverse guard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not reverse guard because that's the Jason Rao
inverted
thing.
Guard.
No, it's
inverted guard.
Reverse mount. Reverse
guard. Reverse guard. You're right, because it's not mount. You're reversed on the guy, and you're both that scissor double.
Yeah.
Reverse. The Jimenez thing he did.
But I'm thinking like reverse guard is the when you put both your knees out, the Jason Rao thing. Like you go from DLR to reverse and pop somebody over.
Okay.
This is like reverse mount. But anyway, we know what this is. It's when you do the A block.
Yeah.
The A block
situation.
situation.
This was interesting though because it was Jonathan Gracie playing a very not present game is the right way to put this, but just tactically like kind of doing the right things, but not doing enough of them to stay ahead of the activity that Taza's putting up. Like Taza will go for a shot. Like the best example of this is later in the match. Taza goes for a shot. Jonathan Gracie sprawls it down, keeps his hands together, and kind of waits. And Taza goes, okay, cool, we're going to wait. I'm going to kind of keep making you defend this takedown because you're not countering this.
Yeah.
Which is sort of, I think, what Taza was maybe waiting for or looking for.
I think he was waiting for him to do something.
Cool, you're going to counter. I'm going to try to out-wrestle you because I'm probably the faster guy here maybe. And like long term because Gracie tends to slow down a little bit. And Jonathan Gracie kind of having an older style match where he didn't do enough.
Yeah.
He was active. He was active throughout the match, but he was never like putting a stamp on the sequences. And Taza was consistently the one like looking for the takedowns, looking for the movements, even when Jonathan Gracie is in half guard and like sort of looking for a Darce and looking for a headlock and looking for a guillotine, kind of looks for it for a second and then kind of goes bounce. Taza starts to counter up. He sort of starts to look for positional work and then doesn't really. He seems to want to get back into Taza's half guard or full guard and then start working from there. And Taza's just not going to let that happen. Taza's going to consistently keep working for kind of the next thing. And Jonathan Gracie gets just stuck in this cycle of not quite doing enough and then losing a decision for it.
Yeah. And Taza's doing more than... He's doing more activity. He's doing more takedown attempts. He's doing more just activity in general.
It's honestly a more active Oliver Taza match than we've seen in a while. And we've kind of criticized Taza sometimes for being a little inactive and like...
Because we saw him do the same thing. He would pull guard and he would get to like...
K-guard, invert for that knee bar or go for the outside heel hook.
Yeah, and he pushed you that direction. He pushed you to pass the same way every single time. And you never saw him do anything but that. And this time, we saw him do a lot more than that.
This looked like purple and brown belt Taza almost again.
It?
Yeah, like back in like Taza was way more active and like he would flow through more sequences back in the day. And we've seen little flashes of this here and there, but this was almost like not a return to form.
It was also a more chippy Oliver Taza than we've ever seen before.
Taza was like kind of jabbering and talking and like making motions. It was like he was much more animated than, because usually he's, in my experience watching him compete, usually relatively like stoic. We'll see little bits here and there, but usually pretty like stoic from all the matches I recall.
I don't recall seeing him this like
he was pretty animated.
This animated, ever.
I kind of wish I had more technical analysis for this match, but it was the style was we had an old Jonathan Gracie match in sort of like he didn't quite do enough in any of the sequences and was unwilling to kind of have multi-layered counters into any of the things that Taza was doing and just sort of looking to only play a top position smash game
and it might have been
Taza could deal with.
And it might have been the fact that Jonathan was expecting that Taza. He was expecting the Taza that doesn't.
I'm going to expect him to revert for the knee bar. I'm going to smash the knee bar past that. And early in the match, Taza goes for it and Jonathan almost passes a couple times for it.
It could be that that's what he expected. And then when Taza doesn't do that and Taza starts moving around a bunch, he's like, okay, maybe I'll try to push him back into that game. And then Oliver's like, fuck you, I'm not going back into that game.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this like pissing match.
Yeah. And that's the best way to put it.
And that could be like, because it felt like Jonathan was waiting for something that just never arrived.
Mm-hmm. And Taza was doing enough to like be active enough to take a decision. I think it was a reasonable decision here. I think Jonathan Gracie, if he would have had, especially in the passing sequences early, if he would have been able to push a higher pace and he would have been willing to like fight through a little bit of what Taza was putting up more, he could have taken this match, but he didn't do that. And so Taza was like, cool, you're just kind of going to let me move into, you're going to let us move this into my game. I'm going to beat you here. It is very weird in the triangle though, because we were talking about this on the pre-show. I was like, Jonathan Gracie has a win over J-Rod. I think J-Rod's beaten Taza, but I don't know. But I would pick J-Rod over Taza. But Jonathan Gracie pretty soundly beat J-Rod. It is just a very interesting like triangle now of like, I kind of want to see J-Rod and Oliver Taza go back at it again because I think it's interesting now, especially with the context of this match of like, we talk about it before, they talk about it in MMA all the time, styles make fights. Jonathan Gracie has a really bad style for J-Rod.
Yeah.
But a pretty hard style matchup for a guy like Oliver Taza.
Yeah.
I think Oliver Taza has a really interesting style matchup with J-Rod.
But I think with J-Rod, with Jonathan Gracie, part of the problem was Jonathan kind of wears you down and kind of takes your soul away.
Yes.
And Oliver Taza, being chippy like he was kind of kept on going after him.
Yeah, and J-Rod will love that.
J-Rod kind of fell apart. Like going with Jonathan. Jonathan's kind of beat it out of him.
He kind of ran out of ideas late. And it was like, I'm losing things to be able to do here. And it was very interesting style matchup, like way more than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
which kind of the whole tournament was sort of like this. Next match, anything else on this?
Nope.
Next match, we had Mica and Roberto defeating Elijah Dorsey. So I watched the comments on this before I watched the match. And it's not really that important, but it was interesting because the comments were like, Elijah Dorsey got robbed. And I was like, it's really interesting. I wonder, it's very possible. It's a Brazilian tournament. You have an American coming in.
Yeah.
To like, I was like, it is very possible that happened. And then I watched the match and I was like, that was like close. But the match is worth watching. The match comes down to 3 sequences. Mica Galvão.
I think it comes down to one sequence because it's the one sequence that everybody bitches about, which is the almost pass.
Okay.
I think that's the sequence because I think the other ones don't really count.
Well, there's one other sequence. It's Mica Galvão jumps kind of an omoplata triangle attempt when Elijah Dorsey's standing. It's the same jumping guard pull we've seen Galvão do a lot. You overhook, he overhooks heavy, and then he jumps up and he kind of crawls up your body. And if you give it to him, he will triangle you.
Yeah.
And then if you don't, he will go for the armbar or for the omoplata and the spin into mount into like the blender. And then he does that. Elijah Dorsey knows that Galvão is going to do this. He goes, cool, kind of shucks him off and deals with it and techs out. And then the sequence that you're talking about, which is the make or break sequence here, is really the only other sequence of note in the match. Mica Galvão goes for an omoplata on Dorsey. Yeah. And then Dorsey gets a really, or he goes for an armbar omoplata combo into like a leg. And then, so it's 3 like decent sub shots in a row with nothing being ever really close. And then Dorsey gets a really nice almost pass off. Yeah. And there's probably 10 or 15 seconds of him trying to settle Mica Galvão down in north-south and like trying to settle. He never ends up settling him. He gets super close. Yeah. I think some referees might have given that to him. I do not think, especially for ADCC, that was control in ADCC's rulings.
I also don't think he initiated the pass.
Yeah, I think, which for passing at ADCC wouldn't matter.
Okay.
But
wouldn't it matter that Mica started the sequence by the attacks?
Yes, because if Dorsey doesn't get it, then the person who, in the eyes of the judges, will win that exchange will be the person that initiated the exchange, which is Mica. And so if there's no points on the board, and you have Mica initiating the majority of the big sequences that result in activity, this is like textbook ADCC rules seminar. Yeah. Every time this comes up, and these are examples that are given, like, hey, a really good, if you're the one doing it and the guy gets almost passed, but you initiated it, you win that sequence. Like, this is the textbook example of winning that sequence. And so Mica Galvão takes this because there are no points. Even if they're close, there are no points. But it's a sequence that Dorsey did not initiate that results in that. So Mica Galvão is given that sequence.
Plus, I think in a tournament like this, you have to kind of murder Mica.
Yeah, you're going to have to beat Mica Galvão straight up in Brazil.
You're going to have to beat him. Beat him. Especially when he has 2/3 of the crowd with his T-shirt on.
You're going to have to really beat Mica Galvão to win that. And I think that's an unfortunate kind of reality sometimes in combat sports, is fighting a guy in his hometown. You really got to put a stamp on that. I don't think it should be that way, but I think it is very easy to see why the decision goes to Galvão in their environment. I also think just
in that environment, you also might get a full-scale riot.
Yeah. You know? But I also think it's reasonable in the rule set for ADCC that Galvão takes this because he is the one that is initiating the action, and if there are no points, then then Galvão takes that. Yeah. And I agree with Dorsey not getting points because he never fully settles Galvão. Galvão does enough here, barely, to stop the points, but there are no advantages here in ADCC, so there are no points, which makes it a moot point. Yeah. If there's not initiation on your side. So it was just very funny to kind of read it like a robbery and then watch it and go, no, that's kind of how that should go. But we watch a lot of jiu-jitsu. If you disagree with me, shoot us a DM. I want to talk about it because I like jiu-jitsu and I love talking about this kind of stuff. I love when we get into the nuance and the nitty-gritty of like points and scoring and judging. I fucking love it. I love it. So anything else on this, Miranda?
Nope.
Moving on to Roberto Jimenez and Oliver Taza. This is when I think the match that you came in, and this actually had this up when you came in. I was rewatching this. This didn't get chippy.
Reverse closed guard. That's the position.
That's what I said.
You said reverse guard. Reverse guard.
Reverse closed guard.
Yeah, reverse guard is what Jason Round does. Reverse closed guard is this. Okay, sorry. My brain just told me that.
This was, so Jimenez makes us on points.
Yeah.
He at the late in the match, he gets a pass to a back take on Oliver Taza. He throws the hooks in, he gets 3 points.
Yeah.
Jimenez, man, that dude is a good back taker. You saw it a little bit in the Isaac Michel match, but here he gets a couple of shots on Taza's back, and he is a wizard when it comes to getting the back. He's flexible. He's thrown the hooks in. He has something special. We've talked about it for years. Him being like the best double unders back taker in the world.
The other thing is, if you think back, like I remember, and I don't remember if he said this when at the seminar I went to, that was him, or if he said this in an interview, but at some point he did an interview or talked to somebody about this, that he started competing as a child and as a child in adult tournaments. So he knew that he was going against men as a kid, and that he needed to get to their back as fast as possible because that was the only way he was going to win. So he's learned through basically survival tactics.
And now he's 185 and still takes the back like a 14-year-old child, and you're like, oh, this is a nightmare.
Yeah, like a little squirrel.
Dude, I had, like for the first time
rabid
this week,
squirrel.
I had this 16-year-old kid in our gym that's all tapped me this week, and I was like, oh no, here it comes.
Uh-oh.
And it was the same thing of like, he got to a position, I was like, I got this. And then he was young and fast, and I went, oh, I don't got this. And so thinking back to like Jimenez, we've been covering him since purple, late purple, early brown belt, when he was still much, much smaller. I think at 45 or 55 still. And now he's up at, 185 for this tournament, and looks like he is in really good shape at that size. But still takes the back like a much, much smaller man.
Yeah.
This was fun. This was weird because it seemed like it just from a tactics perspective, it seemed like Oliver Taza got frustrated. Dealing with Jimenez in a way that was that I couldn't really put my finger on why he was frustrated.
It was almost like the opposite. It was almost like Oliver expected Roberto to be
crushed by a footlock like 3 years ago.
Well, and also he expected like feral Jimenez, and he didn't come out as fully feral Jimenez.
He kind of came out
a little
ready
more
to play a tactical,
more tactical than feral Jimenez.
Jimenez was just willing to like throw the kitchen sink at you. He played, and so
he played a little slower and a little more reserved with Taza.
He's been doing a lot of IBJJF. And I think that like, not that Jimenez isn't just an absolute veteran competitor, but
he did AJP too.
Oh, in the gi, you told me that too recently. He did not World Pro, but he did one of the opens for AJP.
Yeah,
it is really interesting. We've talked about it a little bit off and on. Jimenez, a couple of years ago, 5 years ago at this point, had big problems with his feet. And he would leave his feet out there, he would get footlocked, he would get caught, and you'd watch him do, you're like, man, you're way better than this. Why is this such a weakness? And so this is a match that I think 4 years ago, Taza takes relatively easily.
Yes.
He footlocks him. Jimenez is going to make a mistake. If Jimenez gets into a firefight battle with Taza in these spots, Jimenez makes a mistake, Taza takes it. I think these guys might have had a match back then, and Taza didn't beat him, so I might actually be wrong about that. But it's like a stylistic matchup that I think Taza wins 4 or 5 years ago consistently if he's able to get to Jimenez's feet. Jimenez is not that guy anymore. Like, he has significantly rounded out his game. He now is just a veteran competitor, and there's not a spot that you can really put him in with any level of frequency that he makes these big errors, big mistakes, he gets out wrong. He sort of just knows how to lock down positions. He knows how to use his athleticism and scramble out. He knows how to put his feet in the right positions. He sort of knows. You will think that he is overcommitting himself, and then generally speaking, he will be able to make it work, not just because he's athletic and fast, but because he's actually just ahead of you. He's in the right spot. He's under you. He's got an angle on you, and he just knows that he has the jump on you technically and like strategically for the sequence that you're in. And that's sort of how he deals with Oliver Taza here. There's two big sequences that I want to talk about for this match that were kind of most interesting. Once was the double reverse guard that they're both in. Oliver Taza, so they're in reverse mount, so they're both in that weird like butt to butt position
reverse close
guard, but they both have it. And Jimenez is not locked around Oliver Taza's back because Taza's on the bottom, and Taza's doing the classic thing you do in this position is you go for this power footlock. It's like a toe hold, but you don't really have a lot of good angle to push it because if the person's smart, they can bend their knee, and then even if you put your toes to their butt, you can't really break the foot effectively because you just don't have the leverage because there's not enough tension on the ligaments in the knee and the foot to be able to do it. You've seen guys finish from here, but very rarely a top-level guy will get finished from this position because they have the flexibility to deal with this, and Jimenez here does. And Jimenez never, like, overcommits, and then eventually Jimenez goes, cool, you're messing with my feet here. I'm going to get up, and he locks his legs under Taza, and then Taza seems to get really frustrated by this.
Yes.
And he, like, starts, like, pointing to Jimenez's butt and, like, putting his hands up, and it was an interesting... I didn't really know why he was frustrated. It was like, yeah, that's kind of where Jimenez should have put his feet and gone. But to Oliver Taza, you have a piece you want to add?
No, I was just going to say that part of it, I think, was that he felt like Jimenez was just camping out on top of him and not doing anything.
Yeah. But it's one of those spots where it's like the first guy to try to, it's like the old school 50-50 problem. The first guy to tech out of 50-50 loses, unless you're JT Torres and Wagner Hosha. And both those guys can be in and out of it like a wizard. But
they've never gone against each other that I can see.
Okay.
Roberto did lose to Isaac Michel at Polaris.
What year?
A while ago.
Huh. I forgot about that match.
Yeah, I completely didn't remember that match in any way, shape.
That's a cool rematch. I wish I would have had the English commentator tell me that.
Yeah. But anyway.
So Roberto puts his legs under Taza, and then to Taza's credit, he does an escape here that I don't know if I've seen before.
What?
The pressing back on his shoulders and lifting
the Roberto
up.
Jimenez?
Forcing Jimenez to stand up.
Oh, yeah.
It was a really interesting response, and it's Taza pushing the action here in a way that I was really impressed that, because usually what happens, you can sit in this position, you both get called for stalling enough, eventually they reset you. It's like no one's going to move.
I mean, I guess he thought that if he could get him to stand up, he could go after one of his legs.
And that's what he did.
Yeah.
But he basically does a shoulder press and like almost a bridge off of his shoulders to push Jimenez's hips and legs high enough to then get Jimenez to stand up, because now like he's in this weird position to get turned over if he doesn't. So he stands up, and then Taza goes for a knee bar off, and it was like, oh, that was a really, really cool sequence. And Taza then goes for backside heel hook. Then Jimenez does a good job. From here, this is the sequence that Jimenez gets the back from, because Jimenez spins out of a backside 50-50 heel hook into then taking the back, which is historically the problem with
Jimenez
that backside heel hook.
Jimenez also did this really not bizarre, but I don't know if I've ever seen anybody. He like reached back, like as he was like coming out of the heel hook, he like reached back and grabbed his head and like pulled his head towards him as he went around the corner.
If you're tall enough, that's what you can do.
Yeah.
We are not tall enough.
I know.
That's not a thing we can do.
Yeah, because like I was like, he can reach back that far. I didn't know that was a thing, because I also saw a video this weekend of somebody try this same exact escape and get their leg broken in half.
I saw that too.
I know, I sent it to you.
Oh yeah, that's why I watched it. I was like, ooh, gross, the leg broken in half.
Yeah. Somebody at TAP tournament up in Connecticut or Massachusetts or something tried this same escape, and
Drusina tried it and
his
leg broken.
Got his leg broken.
I like the guy, so it sucks to see that, but it's competing at a high level, man. Sometimes the joints aren't what they used to be.
I think Roberto will also take a little.
We'll talk about the next.
He'll let you crank a little bit.
He gets around the sequence, but this was the most fun sequence, and honestly, just a really good, like, he did what I kind of expected Jonathan Gracie to do.
Yeah.
With a little more pacing.
Yeah.
Like when Jonathan Gracie pushes a harder pace, stylistically, he plays a lot closer to what modern Jimenez plays like now, where it's like I'm locking you down, I'm present, I'm where I should be positionally.
And Roberto just waited for Oliver to kind of overcommit on his leg, and then it was like, I will take your back now.
But I just think it's interesting that like years ago, that overcommitment would have been like a leg lock.
Yeah.
It would have been able to beat Jimenez, and Jimenez has really fixed a lot of those holes in his game now to be like one of the top dudes in the world pretty consistently in a lot of these tournaments. So it's
if anything,
credit where credit's due.
If anything, he's in every tournament that exists currently.
I hope with the injury the next match we'll talk about.
I don't know if
he's fine.
I don't know if that's. It might have just been, I don't know.
It looked bad.
It didn't look broken. It just looked,
it looked sprained. It looked really bad.
Not in the right place.
So Roberto Jimenez moves on. He'll
just put some honey on it. He'll be fine.
He will put some honey on it. Yeah. Finals match: Mica Galvão versus Roberto Jimenez. Very fun match. Relatively quick match. Yeah.
He kind of has to. I mean, I think you kind of had to put him away quickly.
Jimenez is not a guy that you really want to take into like late stretches of the match. Mica Galvão isn't either, but it's also, in thinking about it, like, where are you likely to beat Jimenez? Well, I don't want to give Jimenez a bunch of opportunities. Like, Mica Galvão, we know, can play a really good long match. Jimenez is just going to keep trying. So I think really the first sequence.
Pictures of him from the tournament. He's always he's
got good vibes, man. He's got vibes for sure.
He looks like he'd be going to a Grateful Dead concert, or he could be living in a box, or he could be doing a jiu-jitsu competition.
Yeah, he has a style look about him. So it's a lot of seated guard from Mica Galvão, and then really it's the first big sequence of the match that starts about at the 5-minute mark. We have Roberto Jimenez coming in, and I actually really love the entry that Mica Galvão uses here. It's Roberto Jimenez comes in, he collar ties and goes single leg in front of the guard in the middle of Mica Galvão's seated guard. And then Mica Galvão goes over and does an arm crush off of the sequence. And he just basically crunches down like a straight arm bar over that head grip, because you want to pull their head in so you can pass, so you can knee cut to either side, either knee cut to mount or knee cut to the cross side. And Mica Galvão does this arm crunch, and it's not something we see very frequently, because I honestly think most people can't get their legs up high enough out of it in order to push you away to go for the switch.
Generally, if you're going to do like a choi bar, you go after the far arm.
Yeah.
Across your body so that you can put your legs up over their head and pop over that way. You don't go against same side.
Yeah.
But he also does like the same side armbar standing, like where he jumps over the shoulder. And I think that's it's an athleticism thing.
He's very athletic.
Because
it's very athletic to do that at all. He goes for the arm, and then he just starts cranking on it.
He starts putting the arm in directions that it doesn't belong going into.
But credit to Jimenez, man. There's a shot of him just grimacing, but he's doing what I like to see at the highest level. Is he's not just eating it and hoping it goes away.
Yeah.
He's doing the J-Rod, where they're actively, like, he's rolling, he's moving, he's trying to, he is actively, even if he's taking damage to the arm, he's not doing it in like a dumb static way.
And you're watching Mica have to go from this armbar to that armbar to this armbar.
Yeah, to transition and come out. And then Roberto, he does the topside hitchhiker where he steps around and basically you're in a position where you can one move your arm out and then step over to side control. But Mica Galvão was able to come belly back down over, then come up, roll through again. He's able to flatten Jimenez down. He goes to almost the triangle, then comes back again underneath to go belly down, and he eventually finishes it essentially with a belly down but armbar from the guard, like a reverse style where the legs are in front and through, like a door chalk armbar. Crazy sequence. Like 10 people in the world, maybe less, are going to be able to keep this arm like Mica Galvão in this match. Like, it is the transition. Roberto Jimenez gets out of almost everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
In this sequence, the way he does this. Mica Galvão and a handful.
I think Mica also is like holding his hand or his wrist the entire time. Like he
never lets go. He never has to readjust. He like readjusts his hips. Yeah. But he has good, solid pressure, and he's always pushing Jimenez away.
Yeah, and I found that is something that like makes your arm bars a lot better, is you don't concentrate so much on your hips and your legs as much as your grip on your arm.
You hold the arm. You keep the arm. You keep the arm. You keep the arm.
And you just keep on adjusting your body as opposed to you adjusting the grip on the hands.
Yeah, because as soon as it's like a guillotine. Yeah. As soon as you start adjusting the grip, they're out.
Yeah.
With the arm, like, you hold it. If I have the arm extended, I get a lot more shots on that arm bar, and that's what Mica Galvão does. And then to quote Colbill, the arm goes all fucky wucky, and it gets crunched over, and you see Roberto kind of scream, and then you see him like pull his rash guard up and like look at his arm and where all the ligaments in the elbow are.
It might be a dislocated elbow.
I hope it's not. I hope it's just like pops, and then again, I think to tap Roberto, you have to do a little more than that. But I mean, man, it was impressive.
He told us at the seminar that you don't tap to chokes.
I literally had that conversation with a fighter yesterday. I was like, hey man, he chokes you. You fucking take it.
You take it.
I was like, unless it hurts you, unless it hurts your neck, then you tap because you got a career. You got a career to protect. But he was like, but if you're just choking, you deal with that.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like, what? I was like, You deal with that. And he was
unfortunately,
like,
okay. You've gone out before. I've gone out before.
Oh, yeah. A lot. I go out way less than I used to. I used to go out like 2 to 3 times a year. My wife put me to sleep once. Good times. So, again, Mica Roberto is just, it is a pleasure to watch him in the prime of his career. And it has also been phenomenal to watch just how good Jimenez has gotten. Like, he was a guy that I didn't write off, but he just had a couple of years of pretty significant problems in a couple of areas that we've seen time and time again. Guys just don't correct.
Yeah.
And he did. And he just is such a better, more well-rounded grappler than he has ever been. And him and Mica Roberto are both improving at this like wild rate. They last had a match at Europe at Brazilian Trials 2021, right?
Who?
Jimenez and Mica Roberto. Or were they at different trials? Because Mica won the first one, Jimenez won the second one, I think, is how that worked. And I think Mica Roberto beat him by sub, if I recall correctly.
We will look. I'll look.
But I think it was 2021 is I think how that turned out. But
BJJ Heroes does not have them go against each other.
Really? Yeah. Maybe they were in different. I thought they maybe weight classes. I thought they were. But regardless, it's been cool to watch how they both have developed and like had massive improvements in their game. And again, that armbar finish is 5 to 10 people in the world can track that armbar like that.
I think it was his Mica Roberto's one of the other Manaus guys. Hokage.
Oh.
Who's Hokage? Or Hokage?
Hokage, Fabricio Andre.
Yeah.
Different weight class, though. Fabricio Andre is going to be 66. Jimenez was 77 in that tournament.
I thought it was somebody else.
That was the beginning of Farrell Jimenez, where he was like,
when he was
rubbing the mat,
and I was like, oh my god, there's something going on there. But I thought that was the second Brazilian trials, and Mica had won the first.
I think that is correct. I thought for some reason that Jimenez did both. He might have only done the second one. Or I could be mixing up Hage, or I could be mixing up.
Yeah, he might have done. Well, Hage did both too.
Yeah, but it was that tournament where it's like there were a bunch of big name guys, and Mica wins one, and then Jimenez wins the second.
I just remember Roberto because he was on the sidelines and he was like feeling up the ground, and I was like,
intense.
Why the hell are you feeling up the ground?
And then he beat everyone, and we were like, whatever he's gonna do, man.
Yeah. And this time he had a shirt on with a big eyeball on it, and I was like, I wonder if the eyeball looks at people.
So that was the Nogi. That was the GP tournament. Let's keep us back on track here. We have a couple of super fights to talk about. Go back and watch the tournament. It was really phenomenal. It was a lot of fun. We talked about it for almost an hour. It was a lot of fun. Super good technique and like just interesting stylistic matchups in a way that most tournaments don't have through and through. Usually you have a couple kind of like meh matches. But I think all of these matches answered really interesting questions about all of these grapplers, and it was very well matched.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see PJ Barchin here still because I think I would love to see the rematch with him with Mica. If he doesn't get knocked out prior to the match and doesn't get beat up by Andrew Tackett prior to the match, it's a match I would love to see. But yeah, it was great. Moving on to the super fights. Let's talk about the absolute title fight with Eric Muniz versus Adam Wardzinski. I got sad, Miranda.
Yeah, it was sad day.
I like Adam Wardzinski. He loses here on points 8-2. Versus Muniz. Muniz plays a really phenomenal guard, but Wardzinski's just unable to really get his passing going.
He's also unable to kind of pull Eric into his game.
Yeah.
Because Eric wants to be the bottom player. He wants to be the guard player.
Yes.
I feel like Adam also wants that position.
Adam's a monstrous passer, but yeah, it seemed like in this match, like Adam wanted to start his sequence from the bottom.
Yeah.
And Muniz just would not allow him to get there to start the sequence he wanted. And Adam's like a smart enough game planner to know to not just sit back and play it. But Muniz did a great job here. He does turn Adam to the bottom player, but not on Adam's terms in the guard that he wants. He passes through right into mount. Wardzinski's able to get out and get through. He fights out of a triangle at one point, but really it was like from a stylistic perspective, I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. It was Eric pulled Adam into the game, and Adam really never was able, like, consistently in this match, you saw Eric when he was fighting for grips, and you saw Adam, like, consistently having to break. Spend a lot of the time in the match having to break the grips and reset and reset and reset, because Muniz is such a diligent grip fighter that you saw Wardzinski never really be able to, like, start any sequence he wanted because he was constantly dealing with Muniz's grips.
Yeah.
Or Muniz pulling him down and into the guard and Adam having to get a posture up. Like, Muniz forced Wardzinski to just be diligent this entire match, and then occasionally would have big sequences where he would score points and Wardzinski would have to get out of them, and that was the entirety of the match. It was just beautiful play from Muniz, and Wardzinski never really seemed to get his footing to start to get going.
Yes.
And I got sad because I really like Adam Wardzinski.
I like Adam Wardzinski.
Yeah. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Next match, we had a really interesting title fight with controversy, which is always great. Heavyweight title fight between Gabby Pisana and Tiny Porfirio. This was very interesting. Porfirio wins this one. Sorry. Pisana wins this one. I saw the Porfirio in the seat next to her. By a kind of controversial collar choke that the commentary spent a while looking for a camera angle that they could justify as like, no, it's probably a tap. And I went, not quite sure that's a tap, because Porfirio immediately is protesting.
Do you know the word tap in Portuguese?
I do not.
I was curious if, like, you heard the word and that's how you knew that they were looking for a camera angle for it.
I think they were looking for a camera because you can hear them go, no. They make that international sound for, like, I'm not sure if that's what I'm looking for. Is that right? And you watch them cycle through like 4 or 5 different camera angles before they go, oh yeah, and you see them kind of go, that I think is what a tap was.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of a hand wave on the bottom, pushing in slow motion. That, by the way, slow motion, like Owen Jones and Julian Espinoza.
Yeah.
Slow motion always looks like tap. If you look at stuff at full speed, taps look very different at full speed. This was, I don't know, and based on the grip that Gabby Pisana had, I do not think this was a collar choke. I do not think it was fully in. I think Pisana possibly could definitely have finished this and definitely turned and, like, gotten it done. But I think where it was and where the match is called makes me a little like, I don't know. And again, Pisana's on the back. It is very possible Pisana she was on the way to winning this.
Yeah.
And she was sort of turning the tide from a very kind of good section early from Tiny Porfirio. I was really impressed with Tiny Porfirio on the feet. Gabby Pisana seemed to be struggling dealing with Tiny Porfirio on the feet. It is interesting that Pisana was not the bigger woman in this matchup, and Porfirio was seeming to be able to impose, not easily, but like aggressively on the feet. And eventually Pisana does what I thought she would do here. Pulls, and Porfirio is stuck and goes into passing range. Porfirio starts to pass. Pisana throws up a triangle, has a very good triangle. Porfirio starts to get out of it. They reset. They reset back into like this teepeed position. Yeah. Porfirio pulls out again. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Then Porfirio, through one more sequence happens, Porfirio goes for a footlock. And I was like, ooh, we know that Pisana doesn't have the best footlocks. We've seen her win with footlocks, and you're like, ooh, you're real strong to finish that footlock. But the mechanics have always been like, leave a little to be desired.
I grab the ankle
and can just get it done.
Yeah.
Which again, it works. And you see Porfirio go into the feet, and then Pisana was like starting to counter, and Porfirio is able to pull the leg up, and then starts to get something going and sort of giving Pisana a little bit of a problem with Pisana's ability to get out of the footlock. And then Porfirio does what we saw a lot of guys do in like 2016 era.
Yeah.
She just holds onto the footlock too long.
Well,
and you watch her kind of
we see other people do that too.
We do, but it was like the way that she did it reminded me a lot of like that era of,
because we saw Taza do it too.
We did see Taza do it too in this tournament, so maybe not 2016, but Pisana's starting to take Porfirio's back with it, and Porfirio, instead of abandoning and starting to like do positional work and roll, she keeps it, and then Pisana from this footlock essentially is able to get all the way to the back, and then start working for the choke out of the sequence. But it was Porfirio initially having some success on the feet, then started to work through the guard, and then going into this footlock and sort of almost giving the match away to Pisana in what was like a pretty even matchup where Porfirio had good moments and Pisana had good moments. So it was a bit frustrating to watch, like the thought process.
It might also be a situation where like very few people beat Gabby Pisana, so her thought process was, I need to put I need to put all the effort that I have in to my best attempt, because I need to try to take her out. Yeah,
I need to actually sub her, put a stamp on it. It makes sense. It was you could see like, yep, right there, Pisana has turned the corner enough. She's got the knee free enough where she can now start taking the back, and this becomes unrecoverable for Porfirio in the final sequences here. And then Pisana has a really good collar choke from the back. So again, possible she could have finished it, but it just didn't. It given the protest from Porfirio and given the positioning on Pisana's low hand that would be doing the choking, I was questionable that she was out in the choke.
Which makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That was me. Again, I could be seeing it wrong, but that's what I saw. Pisana takes it. Really surprising to no one. I want to see these two ladies go back at it. I was really excited that kind of Porfirio was putting a lot of pressure into Pisana early, and this was the closest Pisana match we've seen in a while.
It is.
Even though she gets it done with the choke at the end. So, next one, we had Miriam McQueen versus Diogo Hayes. I think it was 8-2. Was it? You have it 11-0. I thought it was back and forth, but maybe I was thinking
8-2 is
Yeah. Miriam
it was not back and forth. It was one way.
It was one way. Miriam looked about 50 to 80 pounds heavier than Diogo.
I think that's a total lie. I think there was maybe 15.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I think you wouldn't in the pre-show. You wouldn't give me 15.
I literally, if anybody can find me how much they weighed in at, I will tell you those two gentlemen are closer in weight than this gentleman besides me likes to think
I think they were about 15 to 20 pounds.
He thinks Miriam was huge. I think it was the hair.
It could have been the hair as well.
He had
accounting for the hair, they're probably closer in weight. But dude, credit for Miriam, man.
Credit for his hairstylist, because his hair stayed in place the entire time.
And he fixes it up at the end. Yeah. And it was like, he used to have short hair too.
Yeah.
Like brown belt career, he had short hair.
Well, it could be extensions too. It could not all be.
I don't know, man. It looked baller. It looked cool as shit. He passes Diogo repeatedly.
Yeah.
And he pulls Diogo out of Diogo's game, and Diogo cannot deal with the passing.
Yeah.
And the transitions that Miriam has here. And Miriam racks up a bunch of points repeatedly on Diogo, and Diogo was unable to really ever get his game going. Kind of in the same way almost Borzinski was going, where he can never make the space he needs to start kind of running sequences on Miriam, and Miriam runs away with the match.
I agree.
In a way that I was extremely impressed. Because again, Baby Shark just won Europeans 2025, 3 months ago. We know he does gi. He's real good still in the gi. Miriam imposed in a way that I do not recall the last time someone close to Diogo's weight has been able to impose on him. It was extremely impressive. We've seen Diogo lose before, but not in this way. Super, super impressed with this. I don't have a lot on this. It was one-way traffic.
Yeah.
The match with Diogo unable to really get his guard going, and Miriam able to figure out every time.
Diogo really unable to pass Miriam's guard at all.
Yeah, as well. Yeah. So, and we also have one more match. We have Leandro Ferreira defeating Igor Brito via 2 advantages. Yeah. Was it 2 points or 2 advantages?
It's 2 advantages, I believe. Okay. Igor Brito can leg circle his feet to his face without using his hands.
And these dudes are heavyweights.
Yeah, he could get his foot to touch his face without using his hands. I'm a flexible person, and I can't do that. So, hats off to Igor Brito. Igor, because he has some flexibility there.
They were fun matches. Again, there were some of the earlier matches as well. I didn't really take any notes or comment on those.
There were some blue belt matches before.
Overall, the tournament was phenomenal. Like whatever BJJ Stars relationship with Flo they have now, like more of this, more interesting bracketing, interesting style matchups, interesting super fights. Like this was a really good card, and I had a lot of fun covering. I had a lot of fun watching it.
Give me a little dancing.
Give me a little more theatrics because you're known for BJJ Stars. But overall, man, it was a really, really good afternoon of watching this event and like enjoying it. So props to them, man. Yep. That has not been the case for many events in the last couple of years. So credit where credit's due. It was a lot of fun. Also, the pacing was good. I didn't feel like I was like I tabbed through some of the commercials, so maybe I was.
Yeah, but I watched the whole thing live, and it did not feel.
It didn't drag.
Not at all.
Yeah. So that was awesome. Next week, Miranda, any kind of closing thoughts on BJJ Stars?
Nope.
I would love. It wasn't my problem because I watched the Portuguese commentary. I would love, dude, fly two English guys over there.
Yeah.
Fly to them over there.
Yeah.
Give me those English guys. Like, give me Jake Watson and
Roberto,
and like
give me somebody there that speaks English.
A lot of them speak. Yeah. Give me two guys in a booth. English commentary, ideally with some ideally that also speak Portuguese so they can translate for me what's going on.
Yeah, like I need to know.
I would really love captioned Portuguese commentary. Is what I would love.
Me and my daughter were trying to figure out if we could find a way to get Google to auto translate what they were saying, and I was just gonna have it auto translate.
We live in technology
because I know that Google has the capacity. Yes. To listen to voices and translate in real time. I just don't know how to do it. And I was going to try to figure out if I could do that because she's young.
Oh, so absolutely. We're doing that next time.
Yeah, so I was going to force her to like figure out how to use Google, and then we were going to translate it, open up Translator on my phone, and just freaking
I will talk to my university students, and I will have them figure this out for me.
Because I think it's possible, and I think if we could do Portuguese commentary, but
English subs,
we could. I mean,
we would have a phenomenal evening,
and I think it would be hilarious because
the Grappling Rewind podcast watches with English.
It would sometimes translate correctly, it's sometimes not,
and sometimes give you who Anderson.
But yeah,
who Anderson. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. Keep doing BJJ Stars. I love the talent they're bringing. I love how the events are running. Next week on preview, we have nothing to preview in earnest for brackets or anything. Brazilieros are going on now on Flow. I watched 2 wipeout matches today because it was live, and I was like, why am I watching the wipeout matches?
Yeah. Why? I thought I saw, okay, maybe I didn't see. I thought I saw some black belts, but they would have been Masters black belts
probably if they were. But
they probably are.
Probably.
Because I thought I saw Peter Frank armbar the shit out of a bunch of people.
May have been a highlight from the last Brazilieros.
Yeah, it must have been.
But regardless, that's next week.
Because he was there too.
Brazilieros is an event we typically don't cover, but there's not a whole lot going on next week.
Yeah, it's IBJJF. It's on Flow.
It's historically extremely hard to cover, but Flow had phenomenal coverage of Euros.
Yeah.
So if they have that level of coverage again, we can absolutely cover Brazilieros. So I hope they do. We'll talk about finals matches probably next week as they happen. But that's all we got going on. We also have Fury. They announced an event in Atlantic City on May 23rd.
Yep.
So that'll be coming up for previews in a couple of weeks.
The main event looks to be Dashi Goto versus Devontae Johnson.
Sweet. Okay.
And then there's some other matches. There's a bunch of other matches on the card. So
yeah, Fury's a lot of fun. So that'll be next week. And then we're in any closing thoughts? Anything going on that's fun?
I don't think so. I think all my fun is, I don't know. I don't know what kind of fun I have.
I am hoping to have.
It's still early in the week.
The studio done next week.
I told him not to say that because every time he says that,
I've been saying it since February, Miranda.
Knock on.
I've been saying it since February.
I know.
But the drywall is done tomorrow. Allegedly. Per my drywall guy.
Yes.
Allegedly. So then I can get primer, then we can paint, then we can move in. The room has no sound treatment yet, so it's very echoey. So apologies for that for the next 3 weeks while I figure out how to build like sound bats and other stuff, but we will maybe.
I thought you built it in.
I know the room is a soundproof room. I built that piece, but now it is covered in drywall and it's very quiet for other places, but it's very echoey in the room. So the next problem that I have to incur problem solving for, but I'm amped, super excited.
Yeah, I don't know how that stuff works.
It's a nightmare, and I'm living it right now.
I do law. It's different nightmares.
Yeah, I feel
all at one time.
So that's it, Miranda. Anything else going on before we close the show?
I don't think so.
All right. As always on the show, I am your host, Maine, joined by the co-host,
Miranda.
And we are the Grappling Rewind. Stand whatever it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.